Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. The drama continues in the Americas last night with MIBR, this time another Brazilian team getting absolutely slammed. Big results from the Americas, especially the reaction to it, what it means from FNS's perspective about the state of that team, and in many respects the state of the Brazilian scene in general. FNS reckons that team is pretty broken. There's some issue either inside or outside of the game that means that as it stands, there's no way that team is going to recover, and therefore their World Championship qualification is very much a risk. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into. Thought that was pretty funny to start out the day. Just a couple of things to go around with. This is, well, look at Kesko, man. This guy's absolutely cooking. We know that our new 100 Thieves team, they're looking pretty good. And the way that their group is currently defined is also set up to potentially give them a nice run through now to the end of the season. Xander says bro's at a party and look at him go. He's just aim trading. This guy is absolutely locked in. He's got the, the earbuds wrapped around the back of his ears. Is a good player when he does that. Derke, just quickly, couple of things to say on the state of Valorant in general, right? Because we know that lots of the players are getting increasingly frustrated with just what they can actually play, right? They want to practice, and they practice with their team, but they want to play more Valorant than that. And it becomes challenging to do so. And as Derke says, any devs who are actually Immortal 3 or Radiant, how do you guys enjoy this beautiful remake system every 2 to 3 games against every good player pro streamer? Or do you guys keep it for yourself? Because why can't we fix this simple issue that everyone keeps abusing? So Derke has some ideas with the Unreal Engine coming as well in an upcoming patch, but more options or things to do in the range. Why do we remove retake and afterplant scenario? Shooting range is the same from beta, lol, which is, it's a fair point. You'd think after all these years they might have updated the range to some degree. Being able to go into the range while queuing ranked would be very nice. RR decay for people in the leaderboard to stop smurfing just because they're in a good slot and they're scared to lose RR, which is, it's a fair point, right, as well. Like having some decay there. More players in deathmatch, where we used to have more after the release. Now it's consistently 4 people leaving it instantly anyways. Search bar for skins and buddies in inventory rather than just scrolling around. Option in cheats to see where your flash or lineup is landing without having to ghost yourself there every time. Spawn bots in customs to use them as dummies. This is a thing that they added in Counter-Strike, right, where like you can see where it's going to land as you go to throw it, and it was something that it took them a long time, I'm sure, to work on and to execute, but yeah, in the end it worked, and there's something possibly similar they could do in Valorant as well. Spawn bots in customs to let them use as dummies, please, which is actually a really good point to understand angles and obviously utility and stuff like this. And a couple of more ideas as well. So just thought it was interesting, really, Derke with a pretty big wish list. And I guess you look down this wish list and you do wonder whether, why some of these things haven't arrived maybe until now, and maybe they never will, who knows. Let's go through some of the results though. Paper Rex, they 2-0'd Boom Esports yesterday. It wasn't like an absolute demolition job, but it was still pretty clear cut. 13-8, 13-10 in the end. So yeah, Paper Rex continue their reign of terror in recent weeks. Boom Esports, we know, it was all looking so good for them not that long ago, and maybe it shouldn't be a massive surprise, right? I mean, when they had this run during Stage 1, when they beat Paper X, that was when, they were going through a bit of turmoil. Most of these other teams they beat at the time, that was also true. But, yeah, Boom right now, it's not looking great for them when it really matters, right? Because we know that if you don't make the World Championship, then you could be at risk of relegation. If you don't do that well in the playoffs, you will be at risk of relegation back down to Tier 2. And, well, as we know, Boom Esports, they were, well, the Bleed Esports drama led to them even being here in the first place. This is Wolves, and they finally got a win. This was a desperately needed win. And they got it. Again, it wasn't spectacular. They won the Lotus on DRG's pick 14-12 before then losing their own map pick 13-11. They then took the Ascent 13-10, just about to get over the line. Fair play to Spring and the guys. But yeah, I don't know really what happened with Wolves exactly, because they do not look like the same team that they were back in Toronto a few weeks ago. But to their credit, we've seen other teams do this before, like Paper X, be on the verge of really struggling, right, be on the verge of elimination, and then they start to put something together and make a bit of a run, and it's not necessarily over yet. It's still alive, and we'll describe why it's alive in a second and what they could or may need to change. Because XLG, they beat FPX 2-0, so this was pretty clean actually. We don't have numbers for this again for some reason, but it was 13-8 and then 14-12. But XLG took down FPX 2-0. This was a very competitive series, really. The numbers might make you believe that XLG won comfortably, and they did win the Haven pretty comfortably, to be fair, but the Sunset was 14-12 with a pretty banger overtime in the end. 6 rounds in a row on the defensive Sunset for FPX to make overtime just to lose anyway is, yeah, pretty painful to say the least. But the Chinese these groups therefore look like this, right? So we've got Group A on the left-hand side, which is looking to be pretty clear, like TEC, and Nova Esports as well in Group Omega is probably a pretty similar story as well. But Wolves are now back at 1 and 3. So if Wolves want to qualify for the playoffs, and if they want to make champs, if they want to do anything, right, they've got to qualify for the playoffs. And, well, to do that, it is still possible, but it is not guaranteed. It really matters what happens with DRG and XLG, I think. So obviously Wolves need to win their next series. Wolves' next series is against Nova. So they should win that. They'll get to 2 and 3. The issue is 2 and 3 for them won't be a great map count, won't be a great round count. So, and they lost to All Gamers, right? That was the really big loss. The July 18th loss to All Gamers, that was the challenging one because there is a thing called head-to-head. Now, they win the head-to-head against DRG. So, what they need to do is tie with DRG, because if they tie with DRG for the 4th seed, they will beat them based on head-to-head. So, as a result of that, DRG need to lose to XLG. So, that's pretty much what needs to happen. Wolves have to win, obviously, and then DRG have to lose to XLG. And that's actually the final game on the 2nd of August. If that happens, pretty much the final game, at least final game of the group. If that happens, those 2 games back to back, then DRG, can still qualify, or like Wolves can still qualify. DRG can still qualify too if those things do not happen. So anyway, that's the way that it looks right now in the Chinese region. But let's talk about the Americas, because this was really the big controversy of yesterday was MIBR. And to be fair, the Brazilian scene in general, Aspas blew himself up with his own grenade. So, and Aspas was going to look it over and say what's going on. This MIBR team, I think we saw it last week, but these guys do not seem like they really want to be there. And I think it's very confusing, right? We talked about them even going into this split, were they really practicing that hard? Some of the guys were away, and it was all rather strange for a team that came 3rd last stage, and they were looking very promising. It just felt like the commitment, I don't know, just wasn't really there from the team. And, you get Sato popping a lovely little 4K here with some nice reactions as well to end up closing out this round. And, we get to see it finally here from Lev, right? Lev actually putting together something pretty impressive, and MIBR go down to Lev in the end, very emphatic fashion, right? We got some of the reaction here from Sato. The facial expressions of this guy were particularly entertaining, and it does feel like the changes they made and the players they acquired have maybe started to pay some dividends, or is it more on MIBR just being terrible and the Brazilian scene right now being in a bit of a shambles? Because Lev take them down, and all the Brazilian teams are struggling heavily. Verno, we know, was in the IGL role, right? Didn't have a great debut there, but, even Aspas. I mean, how often do you see Aspas with a .59 rating? 19 in 29. King, I mean, he was 44 in 16 on Lev. Like, it was a masterclass from him. 13-8 on the Lotus. These are the numbers on the other side. And then the Sunset was 13-3. Complete demolition job, right? Verno 5 in 14. Aspas 7 in 13. So, MIBR just got absolutely crushed. And there was also talk about this, and I mentioned this over the last couple of days, this theory that because the league is based in the Americas, it makes things more challenging. And I think there is probably some truth to this. But as we talked about over the last few days, however, is that overblown, right? Because you could look at other regions and you could say, well, it should be the same thing there, but yet other regions are not necessarily struggling as much. This guy says every organization, because of visa issues, thinks twice before investing in young kids because of this stuff. Congrats, Riot, you managed to sabotage a promising region while giving an advantage to the home teams. With all the teams over there, our region simply doesn't develop. We don't train against the best, we don't exchange ideas, we don't grow. And to make matters worse, our own community sabotages itself with cliques, not giving new players a chance, which I think is also kind of a fair point as well. It's not solely on the state of the league, but it is probably a part to play. We've reached a point where losing our prospects to Latin America, and even, at the end of the day, what Brazil suffers from in some degree is that they don't really have any good in-game leaders in Valorant. Their best in-game leader was Sadak, and he wasn't even Brazilian, right? And now he's gone to play for Carmine Corps. So I think that is an issue, but I do understand that lots of the Brazilian fans and players and regions are saying, look, Riot has destroyed our scene. Brazil and LATAM should have their own franchise based here. What they're doing is killing the entire ecosystem at the roots, and we're starting to see the repercussions of that. Now, do you agree with that assessment? It is, a debate to be had. And people are talking about the flawed franchise format and having the league based in Los Angeles, harming Tier 2, not allowing players to develop, and lots of discussions to this end. Now, some would disagree. Frost, who we know head coach for Talon, and certainly a coach who does not like to mince his words, he will say things how he sees it, and he will not care about the consequences. He says, get the hell out of here. This is in response to that initial tweet that I showed. When I was on Furia, we were tied for second in the league. Then I was fired, and can you guess how many games they've won since then? Brazil just had an issue with outside help. Meanwhile, I went to Talon to help Thailand, and we made champs with a roster that I thought was nowhere near as good as my Furia one. Pacific does have an advantage over other regions because they can scrim China, but Brazilians have the talent, the mentality, the training, and the management are the biggest issues. And there was also other discussion that the narrative around it being a struggle seems to only exist for Brazil. So look, it's a debate, isn't it? Interested to hear your thoughts in the comments below. But whatever's happening to the region in general, there is no doubt that MIBR right now are in a bit of a shambles, and this is what FNS has to say.
Yeah, from having this initial run to this is just, it's got to be demoralizing as well, man. There's just no momentum to like bounce off of. I think there's something fundamentally wrong with this team, and the only people that know what's actually happening are the people on the team. So speculating could range anywhere from, oh, the comps aren't good and it's in-game stuff, all the way to like personal stuff out of game. Do you think Aspas limited duelist pool is fucking this team? Not really. I think there, like I've already said, I think there are fundamental issues with the roster itself, in or out of game, or out of game that's leading to in-game, or in-game that's leading to out of game, that is causing a severe lack of confidence in team play. And right now they are not playing like a team at all. They're not even taking team fights together. I would be down for MIBR to lose as a team. Like if they were just literally double peeking everything and just dying, okay, I understand that. Right now they are taking every 1v1 they can possibly take. It doesn't even look like they are communicating. It's a team thing or a player thing. It could be a player thing that can like seep onto the team, but more often than not, it is a team thing, because the team play goes out the window when you're not doing the fundamentals correctly, like completely out the window. They're not even doing the basic stuff right at the moment as a team, I mean. And that's why I keep saying, like, I know it sounds shitty when I say this team is chalked, but this team right now, I'm saying they're chalked because it's very hard to recover from this big a slump as a team, I mean, unless individuals start stepping the fuck up and hard carrying. It just is what it is. Not much you can really do about this. 13-8, 13-3. The round difference is probably just shattered now as well. -27. Do we think it's going to be MIBR loud to get knocked out of this group? I don't see MIBR recovering from this, by the way. I just don't. But I think there's too many problems on MIBR right now. I don't know what they are, but I know there are problems. There have to be. There's no way these players of this caliber are playing this poorly. This has now gotten past the point of like, there has to be like a Sentinels type team talk here. There's a negative team play. If they watch this VOD back, it would actually be an embarrassment for them.
So FNS not especially confident that there's really much hope of that team turning it around right now. He thinks there are issues top to bottom, and as a result of that, I suppose he reckons that MIBR are not going to be doing all that much for the rest of this season, which would be, a shame for them, but also a shame for the region as a whole, because they were the promising Brazilian team at the start of this year after what happened to Loud before. EG definitely had one of the performances of all time. Some big plays here from Vic, but Cloud9 went down 13-7, then 13-10, or they won 13-7, 13-10. EG went down. So, lots of rounds in there that EG will look at. I think they probably should have won those. But if we look at the overall group stages, therefore, it's looking as follows. So, Furia 0-2 on the left-hand side, MIBR 0-2 on the right-hand side. It's not looking especially pretty for a number of these teams right now, and I don't know if MIBR can make it out of this hole, but, at 0-2, and they have yet to play 100T, they're yet to play NRG, and they're yet to play Loud. So, 3 challenging games, I would say, for MIBR to come. Very much interested to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.